That is not a hypothetical. That is how the financial system actually operates. And the most dangerous part is the person who got crushed probably still believes they did everything right. You grew up hearing the same script everyone else did. Work hard, get a good job, save your money, put something away each month. And you did. You watched your paycheck land, watched taxes, carve out their piece. Before you could touch it, watched what remained trickle into a savings account, or maybe a basic investment. Here is what nobody explained to you in plain language. Every dollar you earn from a paycheck gets taxed the moment it arrives. Then you invest what survives. Then the dividends get taxed. Then the gains get taxed. Every single layer takes a cut. Your $1,000 doesn't grow into $1,000 worth of compounding. It grows into whatever is left after the system eats it at every stage. Now look at the other lane. Someone puts that same $1,000 into an asset, a stock, a fund, a piece of property, and it grows. Nobody taxes the growth while it sits there. No dividend hit. No annual capital gains bite. It just compounds, year after year, on the full amount. Think about that. You're being taxed for showing up to work. They're being rewarded for holding and doing nothing. That is not a glitch. That is the architecture. Governments designed it this way because they want capital flowing into investments, into businesses, into long-term holdings. The tax code is not neutral. Your employer match, your retirement account, that annual contribution you feel good about. Those are real tools, but most people treat them like a checkbox. Instead of understanding what they actually do, the account itself isn't the advantage. The environment inside it is. Money placed in the right structure compounds. Without friction, money placed in the wrong one gets shaved down every year. A small amount in the right container, started early, can outrun a larger amount, dumped into a regular account years later. Not because of better returns, because of less drag. So if you've been doing everything by the book, earning, getting taxed, saving what is left, and wondering why the math never seems to work in your favor, it is not your effort that failed. It is the lane you were never told you were standing in. If the system was designed to move wealth faster through ownership, what happens when a small part of your financial life shifts to that side of the equation? Drop your answer below, because what comes next might change things. It might change how you look at every dollar you currently earn. Person did what felt obvious. They needed $20,000, so they sold part of their investments. The government took its cut on the games. What actually landed in their account was less than $20,000, and the portion they sold stopped compounding forever. That money left the game. It will never generate returns. Returns that generate more returns. It is gone from the equation permanently. Person B needed the same $20,000, but instead of selling, they borrowed against what they already owned. Maybe a securities backed line of credit. Maybe a home equity line of credit, where the bank lends you cash, using your house as collateral. The house stays yours. The investments stay invested. Every share, every square foot of property kept working. Person B got their cash and kept their entire asset base intact. Now run that forward. Person A has a hole in their portfolio. Not just the $20,000 they pulled, but every dollar that amount would have generated over the next decade, and every dollar those dollars would have generated after that. Person B has no hole. The full base kept compounding. That gap doesn't stay flat. It widens every year because compounding is exponential, not linear. The money person removed isn't just missing. Its absence multiplies, and the system is built this way deliberately. Banks prefer lending against collateral because it lowers their risk. Policy supports credit markets structured around assets. A home equity line is not some billionaire loophole. Your local bank offers it. The mechanism is sitting right there. But most people never touch it because they learned one script. Need money, sell something, pay the tax, move on. The system doesn't punish earning. It punishes the wrong kind of movement. And most people move their money in exactly the way that costs them, over and over, without ever running the numbers themselves. Ask yourself honestly, which person are you right now, A or B? But income and liquidity are only part of this story, because the assets you're holding on to so carefully have their own strange behavior written into the tax code, and what the system assumes is happening to them behind the scenes might be the most counterintuitive advantage of all. Picture two people at a dinner table. 15 years from now, same company, same start date, same salary. One owns a rental property, holds equity from employer stock programs, and lives where their dollar stretches twice as far. The other saved into a regular brokerage, paid rent in an expensive metro, and skipped every benefits form that looked like a hassle. Same hours clocked, same effort spent, completely different financial realities. And the gap between them has nothing to do with who worked harder. This is where the system stops pretending. It doesn't care about your hustle. It cares about where your money sits and what legal category it falls into. Take the rental owner. Every month, rent checks land in their account. Every month, rent checks land in their account. Real, spendable cash. But when tax season arrives, something odd happens on paper. The government lets them write off a chunk of that building's value, as if the structure is slowly crumbling. Even while the market price climbs, they call it depreciation. It exists because governments want housing built and occupied. So, they wrote an incentive into the code. The result is the owner collects real profit, while their tax return tells a completely different story. Sometimes, it looks like the property broke even. Sometimes, it shows a loss. The cash keeps flowing either way. Now look at the person sitting across that table. They ignored the employer stock purchase plan because it felt complicated. Never opted into the contribution match because they wanted the full check in hand. Treated benefits enrollment like junk mail. Meanwhile, their coworker routed part of their compensation through those exact programs, bought company stock at a discount, received matched contributions. Essentially, free capital dropped into their account, used tax-advantaged accounts that let money compound without getting clipped. Every quarter, the first person took the same salary as raw cash, watched the government take its cut, then invested whatever remained. The second started every year with a larger base, better tax treatment, and extra money they never had to earn. Multiply that quietly across a decade, and the difference is not subtle. It is a second income hiding inside paperwork. One of them threw away. Then there is the question nobody thinks to ask. Where are you standing when you spend your money? Someone earning a remote salary, anchored to a high-cost city, but living where rent is half and groceries cost less, is not making more money. They're making the same money travel further. The system doesn't adjust your bracket because you moved somewhere cheaper. Your income stays identical on paper. Your expenses collapse around you. That spread is not a lifestyle hack. It is a structural layer of wealth that builds silently, month after month, while someone paying $4,000 for a studio wonders why a six-figure salary still feels tight. This is the real divide, not between people who work and people who don't, between people whose income passes through structures designed to protect it, and people whose income arrives naked, taxed on contact, shrinking before it ever hits a savings account. So here's what actually costs you. Not the market crash, not the bad stock pick, It is the invisible bleed that happens when you feel like you're doing everything right. Picture a guy who checks his portfolio 11 times a week. He sells a position every time it dips 3%, buys back in on the recovery, and feels productive the whole time. He doesn't see that every single one of those trades is a taxable event. Every sale triggers a bill. Every bill yanks money out of the compounding machine before it ever had time to do its work. After a decade of that behavior, he has handed over more in capital gains taxes, more than some people spend on a used car, and he genuinely believes he is being disciplined. Now picture someone else. She bought one index fund, set up an automatic transfer on the first of every month. Then, she deleted the brokerage app from her phone, not because she stopped caring, but because she understood something. Most people refuse to sit with it. The system rewards capital that doesn't move. Lower turnover means fewer taxable events. Fewer taxable events mean a larger base compounding without interruption, month after month, year after year. She isn't smarter. She just stopped touching it. That is the first move, and it is painfully boring. Stop trading. If you've been buying and selling positions more than twice a year, you're volunteering to pay taxes you don't owe yet. One automatic monthly contribution into a broad index fund, then walk away. That is the entire action. But there is a second piece. Most people with a regular paycheck never consider. Right now, every dollar you earn arrives after the government takes its cut. You get taxed. Then you live on the remainder. Businesses work in reverse. Revenue comes in. Legitimate costs get subtracted. And taxes only apply to what is left. The income is identical, but the sequence is not. And over 20 years, that sequence changes the outcome dramatically. You don't need to quit your day job or build some empire. If you freelance on the side, consult, or sell anything online, even a small project, pulling in a few $100s a month, that income can move through a simple business structure. Your laptop, your software, your internet connection, the course you took last quarter, all of it reduces your taxable base before the government ever calculates what you owe. You aren't hiding anything. You're walking through a door the tax code built. Here is your second move. This week, take 1 hour, pull up your last 3 months of bank statements. Circle every expense connected to work outside your main salary. That list is your starting line. It tells you whether reclassifying a small stream of income could shift the math. You aren't chasing a windfall. You're plugging a leak with paperwork. These two actions will never go viral. They will never feel exciting. But compounding doesn't care about excitement. It only cares about what stays inside the system. And for how long. Picture someone liquidating their entire portfolio on a Tuesday afternoon. Not because the market crashed. Not because they picked the wrong stock. Because rent was due. And the car needed a transmission. And there was nothing sitting between their life and their investments. They sold at a loss, paid taxes on what little gain existed, and watched that same position recover 3 months later without them. That is what happens when you have no buffer. The compounding stops, the clock resets, and you're back to zero with a tax bill in your hand. Now flip that. Someone else holds the exact same asset, same entry point, same market conditions. But they have 3 months of expenses sitting in a boring, untouched account. Cash they never plan to invest. Cash that exists purely so they never have to touch what is growing. That person doesn't sell on Tuesday. They don't trigger a tax event. They don't interrupt the one thing quietly working in their favor. The asset keeps compounding on its full base, untouched, undiluted, uninterrupted. Not because they're smarter, because they built a gap between their life and their money. This is the part nobody wants to hear. The edge isn't a hot pick. It isn't a loophole you found on the internet. At 2 in the morning, the edge is the ability to do nothing when everything around you is screaming. And that ability is purchased with the most boring financial move that exists. A buffer, a few months of breathing room. That lets you choose when to sell instead of being forced to. The system taxes you when you move. It leaves you alone when you sit still. Every time you're forced to sell early, you hand back a piece of your future. Every month you can afford to wait. That piece stays in the machine, growing. The difference between those two outcomes, over 10 or 20 years, is not small. One move this week: open a separate account. Put something in it.